It's Mrs. Moriello. I'm here to just review with you the final assessment for The Giver. If you were on our Google Meet on Tuesday, you've already heard this whole spiel, but if you were not, or you just want to listen to it again, here you go. So, your final writing piece that has to do with The Giver is assignment number 26. It is 50 points. If you look at the assignment itself, there is a rubric attached to it. If you scroll down, I will quickly go through that with you in a moment. And basically, what you have is an assignment page, which will have three different choices for you to choose from for your response. And then you also have a response page. So your response page is right over here, and that is where you're going to be typing your answer. And your assignment page is where you're going to be finding what you need to do. So first thing, this is your assignment page. It is due on Monday at 11:59 p.m., almost midnight. Your response should be one paragraph in length. It should be a very well developed paragraph, almost seeming so long it could be two. Um, we're looking to make sure that you use tag, title, author, genre, that you're still organizing using races, restate, answer, cite, explain, sum it up. You should be able to say that in your sleep by now. And a few things we're looking for, you'll notice in the rubric, are introduction of evidence, that you are using some insightful commentary, you have a concluding sentence, using the strongest vocabulary and transitions that you know, and that you're proofreading your work. So let's go to the three choices. So your first choice is identify one major difference between the film and the novel that has an effect on the plot. That's your key right there. That has an effect on the plot. If you just said to me that one major difference is that in the movie he injects himself rather than in the book he takes pills to do away with the stirrings. My question to you would be, well, is that a major difference that actually has an effect on the plot? Yes, sort of, because now he has to use the apple in the movie in order not to be injected. But is this something that really changes the course of the story and really has to do with how you would feel you know, an increase or a decrease in your enjoyment of the story? It's not anything that would have such a huge effect on the plot. But I might say something like Fiona being a nurturer rather than a caretaker of the old has a huge effect on the plot because certain things now take place at the end of the movie as a result, which I'm not going to tell you because I'd be giving it all away. And also, I'd be able to state whether those changes, because they were big, really had an effect on how I really enjoyed the storyline. So that's your number one. Your second option is more theme based. So you have here, what is one thing you learned from Jonas's experience in The Giver that you can take into your own life? Explain. Be specific. Use two details to support your response. They should be text evidence with citations. You may use I as the question is asking, what is one thing you learned? And of course, make sure you proofread your work. So you may say, one thing I learned from Jonas's experiences in The Giver that I can take in my own life are to appreciate the colors and the world around me. And then I would explain why I can learn that from this book. And number three, your choice, which is actually a little bit more tricky, and that is How the Giver, believe it or not, is one of the most frequently banned books each year, especially every year on Banned Book Day, which takes place in September. Lois Lowry even stated that when the Newbery Committee chose her book as the winner, she thought it was a very gutsy move because it wasn't the safest option. What she meant by that is that there were novels that were safer because her book, The Giver, has certain things in it that you might say are either inappropriate or difficult for young adults to deal with. So imagine for this particular question that you're an attorney and you're hired to defend the novel in a school where some believe that it shouldn't be read. So imagine there are students that want to read this book and the parents and teachers have said no. Your job is to defend the novel, and your paragraph would be your defense. And in your defense, you are going to prove why it needs to be read And the way you would do that is to say it needs to be read and should not be banned because of one important lesson it teaches, and you'd have to support that with evidence. And you'd also have to say another reason it should be taught is because even though some may believe, and this is the counter argument, this. So I might say, although some say the novel should not be read because it contains graphic images that are difficult for students to handle, it still would be appropriate because. And I want to make sure that when I am refuting that, that I'm directly addressing the issue brought up by the opposers. I wouldn't say it still would be appropriate because it teaches about love. That has nothing to do with the issue about the graphic images. I have to actually figure out a way to do that, figure out a way to refute it directly. Okay. Some people may want to split this question into two paragraphs. That's absolutely fine if you do that. Um, but that's the way that would go. And just one more thing, going back to the first one, if you're going to do the novel versus the film, it does say you need two details. Of course, I do not expect you to go back into the film to cite word for word dialogue. You can just paraphrase or describe what happens in a scene in the movie. But when you're referring to the novel, I expect you to use text evidence. One last thing, actually, two last things. On your assignment page, which actually looks like this, you're going to write the assignment choice that you've chosen. So is it one, two, or three? I'm also asking you over here to list three specific things you feel like you have learned this year, you've worked on this year, you've improved upon, and that you are hoping to work on even more. I'm going to ask you to list those three things. And I've given you a bulleted list over here of what you can choose from. I don't expect that you have reached mastery level in these things. You may just be starting to work on commentary, and you may write that. I'm going to work on that. And the last thing I just wanted to go over with you is that on the assignment page that you have in Schoology, we have a rubric. So this is worth 50 points over here, and your criteria are over here. You're being graded on your claim. Do you have a clear focus? Is it including language of the task, meaning you've restated and answered with an accurate claim or an accurate answer? Your evidence. Are you doing the following? Introducing with context, meaning your RBI, your relevant background information. Are you introducing or embedding your text evidence? Did you effectively support the claim, meaning you have an accurate piece of evidence that makes sense? And did you quote and use a citation for your evidence? Analysis or commentary, which is what we worked on before. You may want to go back even to the YouTube video that was posted on how to use commentary. We want to make sure that when you use commentary that you develop your ideas about the evidence, that you're proving your claim. You're not just restating or repeating what is in the actual text evidence. So if I have text evidence that said, Josie ran to the store in a nervous haste, I'm not going to follow that up with this shows she hurried. That, of course, is what she did. I might say something like, and I'm just going to put this shows in parentheses because I want to try to get myself out of that habit. What does this show about her? That this shows Josie is fearful that she will not make it to closing time and she desperately needs medication um, to help her ailing grandfather. Okay, so I've now explained a little bit more about that quote. I haven't restated it. I explained why she was in a nervous haste and why she was running. The author, maybe I might say, uses the words nervous haste in order to show the reader um, how anxious she is about her grandfather's situation. Okay, so see there, my commentary, that's this part over here, is where I'm explaining this quote. And maybe my claim was something like Josie shows great concern for those she loves. So we now see that my commentary is not saying this shows she has concern for those she loves, because then I'd just be repeating it. I'm also not saying this shows she ran in a nervous haze, because that's what the quote says. Instead, I am explaining it in my own words. Josie's fearful that she will not make it to closing time and she desperately needs medication, yada, 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 yada. And after the fact, I'm going to go back in here and I am going to remove the this shows because we are beyond that. We don't need that any longer. So that's my tip about the commentary again. Closing sentences. Still with the closing sentences, we need a closing sentence. A really great closing transition is a therefore rather than an in conclusion. In conclusion is not really great for paragraphs. Therefore, and now I want to take my topic sentence or my answer and I want to rephrase it. I don't want to say it in the same way. A really good thing to do is actually be to block that out and not show it to yourself. I don't want to say, therefore, she shows great concern. Therefore, Josie's love for others shows no bounds. So, therefore, I've rephrased it in a new way. Moving on to the next thing, language and conventions. Make sure that you're using proper organization with races. Word choices, really strong word choices. Don't go in with the mad, sad, bad, glad. Good transitions. If you don't know, you have a list that you should have at home in your keepers, or you can just go online and type in Google transition word list and come up with a bunch there. And make sure you're proofreading and proofread everything out loud before you turn it in. So there you go. That was probably longer than you were, but hoping that is helpful to you. Take care. Peace out.